Today I'm going to be debunking a myth, okay? There's a myth, and for a lot of us who may believe it as well, or may have heard it, definitely heard it, that we only use 10% of our brains. 10% of our brains. I'll be citing research from a book called How We Learn. It's by Benedict Carey. Okay, it's a pretty good book. Has some really insightful stuff in here. You know, how the brain works. The author opens up by setting the stage. Writes, think of waves of information rushing in every waking moment. The hiss of the kettle, the flicker of movements in the hall, the twinge of back pain, the hang of smoke, and the demands of a typical layer of multitasking. Say preparing a meal while monitoring a preschooler, periodically returning work emails, while talking on the phone, catching up with friends, checking your social media, and that last part. But think of all the things that the brain is able to do at one time. You're telling me you only use 10% of your brain? 10%? On page 3, the author notes that through research, they found that the human brain, the average human brain, contains over 100 billion neurons. You know what a neuron is? Neurons are cells that make up what is called gray matter in the brain. Okay? And most of those cells are linked to countless other cells. And those cells are linked through a process called synapses, which you can find more information on page 6 of the book. All those cells come together and they form a whole universe of intertwining networks in your brain. You know, 10% of 100 billion is a lot. We must also realize or keep in mind that the brain has different functions. On page 4, we're given a sketch of the brain, and it's showing here there's some areas that are central for learning. We have the entorhinal cortex. Maybe I pronounced that wrong, but it acts as like a filter for new information that comes in. We have the hippocampus. That's where their memory formation begins. And you have your neocortex. That's where your conscious memories are stored once it's realized that they're memories that you're going to keep in your head, you know. The author further states, the entorhinal cortex does one thing. Hippocampus does another. Right hemisphere of the brain performs a different function from the left hemisphere of the brain. Sensory areas of the brain too that process what you see, what you hear, what you feel. Take it from page 5. Each does its own job, and together they generate the coherent whole, a continually updating record of past, present, and possible future. You really think all that is done with only 10% of the brain? In the words of the billionaire Christian innovator, Kanye West, how, Sway? The human body has a bunch of different body parts, organs, muscles, and what have you. Just because you're not using them doesn't mean they're not in use. Take the hand, for instance. You may use your thumb and your index the most. That doesn't mean you're not using the whole hand. Your fingers have different functions that they perform. You know, you can grip, you can poke, you can hold things, throw things. You might not use your pinky finger as much as you use your index finger, but it serves its own purpose, a different purpose. Though they have different functions, they still function together. Not using 10% of your hand. You're lifting weights, or you're picking something up. You're using your whole muscle. You might not be using all your strength, but the entire muscle you're getting used. It's getting used. So page 5, the author loosely compares how the brain works to the likes of a movie production crew. Like at the end of a movie, when you're looking at the credits and you see 1,000 names, 1,000 people in 1,000 different positions, to get a movie produced. That's how the brain works. You have different sections in your brain that does different duties and responsibilities and have different jobs, and on page 14 we have another visual illustration of the brain. The author writes, the neocortex is the seat of human consciousness, an intricate quilt of tissue in which each patch has specialized purpose. You can see here where different parts of the brain have where they control, like the visual patches are in the back, the motor control areas are on the side near the ear. One patch on the left side helps interpret language. Another nearby handles spoken language as well as written. The layer on the top of the brain. So to debunk this myth, 10% of your brain or 100% of your brain? I think what was meant by the originator of the saying that we only use 10% of our brain is that the potential uses of the brain, what we're capable of doing versus what we are currently doing, like our current functions or current uses of the brain, are so drastic. The potential uses are so, the difference is so drastic that it's like we're only using 10% of our brain. But in actuality, we're using 100%.